Good morning. Beautiful Sunday morning here in Tennessee. Want to talk about a couple things. We're still going to do some things today. We're going to move things to the Hyperfile SQL server, HFSQL. So that way, instead of using static files, we'll be moving that. So obviously, the first thing we got to do is go ahead and create the branch for this, because we want to make sure that we keep each one of these set correctly, and then we'll talk about while the branch is working. We'll talk about some of the things that we need to do, and go from there. Let's see here. That's fine. Let's go. I do not want to go to backup. Let's see what else. Okay, there we go. I'll make this be 2, because that was for last week. Was the second version of this. So we got version 1 in there, and then we've got version 2. So we'll keep each one of those separate and go on from there. Go ahead, and there we go. Okay. So let's kind of talk about a couple of things that we're going to go over today. One is we're going to go ahead and move the analysis and make it a Hyperfile instead, setting that up to be able to have it more of a networked type system. It's going to be on my server here locally, which you guys will be able to get to remotely using the credentials that I'm going to put in here. And then the second thing we're going to do is we're going to start initiating and going over the basics, and I do mean the basics, of creating a RESTful program out of WinDev. Now, I do have all 3 products, WinDev, WebDev, and WinDev Mobile, working all out of WinDev. So, but I want to make sure that you understand that the RESTful development can be easily done in WinDev by itself. Okay? So if you only have WinDev, have not done much in WebDev or mobile as yet, or to have it sitting over the side, or haven't even bought it yet, you'll be able to do what I'm doing today in this same version 25 of WinDev only, without having all 3 products installed. RESTful programs, you got to think about different things that you want to do with it. One, kind of put this on your notes. What kind of security are you going to put on it, if any at all? Number 2 is where should it be located and what kind of database? And that depends on who's going to be going after the data, who's going to be utilizing it. Is it going to be mobile devices that are traveling around in the road, or phones and things like this, or is it going to be in your enclosed office building and warehouse, where all you're doing is doing warehouse methodologies and using RESTful programs to update the data on how many items is in stock and things like this, and stock verification, or exactly where it's going to be. That's going to all tell you what you can and can't do. Plus, if you decide to make it public, in other words, let everybody out there, here's the API, you can feel free to utilize it, then of course now you're going to get into a little bit more. So think about all of that before you start going down the path of doing REST, so you know where you're going to go with this. We're not going to go out that far, at least not right away. So what I'm going to do is create a very simple RESTful that all it does is gets the data and sends it back, basically. That's all it's going to do. And then the second part is when we get into the next section of this, we'll expand that out and require that everybody has a token that we create for them with a time limit on it. So the token is basically not a hash, but an encrypted bit of information that you have them send with it, and it'll deciphered, say their user ID and password or their name and their company name, whatever it may be, plus a date that will tell you that it's going to expire. Okay, that would be phase 2. So that puts us into things like ensuring that somebody else that's coming in and utilizing your APIs to do work is authorized to do so. So we're going to expand on each section of this. Now the good thing about it is that as of 24, and especially 25 is even better, we have a Json variable. And the Json variable, Pete and I have been playing with it and working with it, and we've really gained a pretty good knowledge of what all you can do with it. And what I'll do here is give you a little bit of a look-see at that, because we've been playing with it in the QuickBooks demonstration, or the QuickBooks class, sending up data and stuff to QuickBooks online, QuickBooks Online, not local. But if you're interested in working with us on the QuickBooks and things like this, go ahead and send us an email at sales@wexperts.com, and we'll be more than happy to tell you what it's going to take, how much help you're going to need, and help you get it into place. So anyway, the SCM has already been branched, so we can go up there and take a look at that real quick just to make sure everything looks good. This is a small application, doesn't take that long. Okay, so we got V2 is there, so that's our second. Now, what we need to do is go ahead and look at creating our database and setting up to where we can move the files up there and add records to it. You have a methodology to import as well. So the first thing we need to do is we're going to go ahead and open up the Hyperfile SQL Server Manager. And that's on a different screen, so it'll be open, and I'll move it into place here. Why? Oh, because I'm going to the, let's see here. There we go. Okay. This is my local server test, as well as some SCMs out there for different people, as well as myself. And we're going to create a new database out here. So the database name is going to be, we'll call it ID demo. Okay. Now we got the ID demo. There it is. We need to do a couple things. One, we got to put a user attached to it. You want to make sure that your users, however you're doing your users, don't necessarily have access to other people's data. If you're running multiple databases in your system, then you may do it globally that everybody can get to everything, but if you're doing something like we are, where I've got different people in here, I want to make sure that we don't have other people getting into it. So I'm going to create a new user on this, and the new user, come on. There we go. We'll create us a new user, and we're going to call him IDE in caps. Password, we'll just make it real simple. We'll call it IDE as well. Actually, we'll make the password IDE demo. And if you want to look at that to make sure you got the capitalization right, which I'll show you anyway, that's what it is, IDE demo. Yep. See if we got them right this time. Now, we have groups and different things like this, which has that all sitting down here. We don't want a group on this one. So we're not going to really do anything there. So we're going to just save him, got him, open up the database. We're going to go back down to the IDE demo and open that up. And we're going to go management of rights. Okay. Admin obviously has rights, but I'm going to come down here to my IDE, and you know, see, he has no rights. So we're going to give him a few. We're going to say, okay, he can have rights to open up the records. We're going to give him rights to lock the records. We're not going to give him rights to change rights, modify the integrity rules, modify the owner, to connect. Obviously, we've got to connect. So you got that one, you don't need that one. Create a file, we'll do that, so that way that can be done. Create a view. Enable and disable the management of duplicates. Read the records. We'll give him reindex rights. Just go through this and make sure he's got the rights necessary to do work. Now, you can tell them they can't delete a record. That's fine. It all depends on what kind of security you're going to give the user coming in here. I don't want to be able to delete a data file. I will not allow that. And modify triggers, backups. Okay, so we'll give him perform backups as well. And that should be enough. Okay. So we're going to store the configuration of the defined rights and save that. So now he's got the ability to do things. The next thing we do is obviously we created two files over here in our IDE demo. So we can actually bring those into our system by right mouse clicking and telling it to import an HFSQL Classic database. We can open that up, get the location. Now, even though this is on the other server, the location I'm looking at is on my development PC here. So I can even bring it from here over to there. So that's exactly what we're going to end up doing. I'll come back up here, go to W Experts, because I believe that's where we got the IDE demo right here. And I'm going to go into the EXE. Nope, not far enough yet. We should still have the correct area to look for that file. So hang on a second here. Okay, so we're going to need to go into, looking at this, we're going into the localhost file. And we'll go ahead and select that folder. Hit our next. Just tell us this is the database we're going to put it in. We can do an analysis on this, which kind of sets up importing any of the integrity rules you may have put in there, as well as any store procedures or things like that if you have it. And then we got the customer file here. To do that, take that one in and we tell it there and next, and let it connect, and that's done. That's the customer file. And if we look at it, what we should do is get the one record we have up there. Now that's not the only one. We've got to get the child table as well. So let's go ahead and do that while we're at it and get that one in. Oh, wrong one. ID demo. And contacts is what we need. We don't need to do the customer file because we already have it. So we do the contacts and bring that one in. Okay, so now we've got both of our contacts and our customers here. We look at those records, we can see that we've got the customer, we're going after it. We're pretty in good shape here. We're doing pretty good. Yep. And we're doing fine. Okay. Now, from here now, we've got them in the server, and what we need to do now is point our data to it and change the analysis so that way it's pointed to the server instead of the local HFSQL files. Okay, so we can set this aside at the moment. We've got that. I'm going to move it out of the way onto one of my other screens, and we're going to come in here and let's go to the analysis because that's where we're going to do next. We're going to have to change the things in the analysis in order to get it connected there. So underneath the analysis, we've got our connections. We've got HF connection right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change that and go from there. We're going to create a new one. So we're going to click this up here. Let's go ahead and create us a new connection. And that new connection is going to be to the SQL, HFSQL. Now, set up to HF Classic. This one here, we're going to set up to HF Client Server. That's the difference between the two. We're going to go next, and we're going to, what server do we have it at? That's going to be ccscowboy.dns. No, and that's all you need on there, and the port number is 4900. So we'll go from there. Username is going to be IDE, and the password is going to be IDE demo. Okay. Hit your next button. It's got the database already. We're good with that. And we're going to call this HFSQL connection. And finish. Do we want to associate? Yes, you want to associate these files because right now they're not HFSQL databases or tables, so we need to associate the both of them. Do we want to copy the data to do there? No, we've already done this. We don't need to do that, and we need to finish at this point. So now you can see that the color changed, and we've got HFSQL Client Server for each one of those tables. And that pretty much takes care of it. Now, the next step that we've got to do is we've got to tell the WX Manager class, hey, we moved it. It's no longer here. So we got to come back here, and we got to redo this connection differently. Now, a lot of times, and later on, we will do this, okay? And what we will end up doing is creating a configuration file with the connections to the database. And the reason why is because it's a little bit harder because we've got encrypted password and user ID to keep people from, trying to hack into your database. But in this instance here, we're going to make this real simple and just go from there. The server name is going to change. All right. And the provider certainly is going to change, but there's a couple other things we got to put in here. dbcon, user, IDE, dbcon, password, IDE demo, is that one. And now we got the provider. That's going to change to HFSQL Client Server. That's where that one's going to change. Okay. And that should get us connected to there. The one thing that's missing is the database. I forgot that one. dbcon database equals ID demo. If I remember correctly on the whole thing. Yes, ID demo. That's okay. Now this right here is going to change it and fix everything. This is the other part that's going to change because we don't need the dbcon anymore because that's local files. We want to switch around and do the connection for the HFSQL. So we're going to come through and instead of doing dbcon, we're going to do HFSQL instead. Okay? We don't need to change the directory anymore. So that's a useless deal. We still want the H creation if not found. Now, if you're running HFSQL either locally or remotely in a database, You can certainly use the hcreation if not found, because if you create a new table over here, it will automatically create the table in your database, and life will be good. It'll also update it. You can also do updates and stuff to it as well. As you move forward, you can even put in the code in here to do the update. If you're sending this out to multiple people, 10, 20, 30, I would not necessarily want to do the update here. I would do it myself, and then as they install the new XE, everything will be fine. But from our standpoint, you can certainly leave that there and go from there. And then, of course, the C connection is still dbcon. Okay, so now that we're pointed to the other database, we can hit the go button. Guess what? We have Andy and everybody underneath that's necessary. So we're getting it now. The data now is coming from the server, my server, instead of the local files. And that's as easy as it is. If you go to Postgres or go to MS SQL is just as easy doing this if you'd use an MS SQL, because it's not case sensitive. So bottom line is, other than generating the SQL commands to create the tables, that's all you have to do. So our next V4, the one we're going to be working on V4, is we're going to move this data to another SQL like Postgres. And the reason why is, let's say we're doing a nationwide thing or a worldwide thing, and we need to make sure they have the highest speed and connectability and all these issues taken care of. And the way we do it is we use the AWS and Postgres to give them those kind of realities and capabilities. HFSQL can handle quite a bit. It handles a lot of data. We use it also, and we are using it for our windev-us.com site, as well as several other things that we've got going on as well. It really just depends on the on what we're trying to do with it. We are, both Pete and I are old school SQL from Oracle days on up, so we have a tendency to lean towards that, but it's not necessary. I mean, you can do it, but a lot of it has to deal with what kind of virtual machine you get, where it's located at. Is it in your server, or is it up there on like Amazon AWS or several other ones in there, and what kind of capabilities it gives you, okay? You can also use MySQL and several other ones. It's whatever flavor of database that best fits your needs as well as your comfort zone, okay? So now we've done this, what's our next step? Well, let's go back, and what we're going to do now is create the RESTful programs that we want to utilize with this. We want to generate out to where it pulls us back that same set of data in one shot and gives us what we need to display on those two screens. And then what we'll do is we'll actually take that W main and we'll make another plane on it, which is something we'll explain as we do it. And the plane 2 will actually call the RESTful program and show the data instead. Okay? Because we'll publish this up to my server, my test server, and allow it to be used from there as well. And that'll give everybody a chance to take a look at it across the board. All right, so our next step is we currently have a 32-bit Windows executable configuration. One of the nice features that WinDev, WebDev, doesn't matter, has is that you can create multiple configurations. If you have all three products running out of WinDev like I do, and a lot of people are going into, this was a new feature that came out in 24 that was an awesome feature. You do have to have all three of the USB dongles, but bottom line is all three of them will run out of WinDev. And the way you do that, just kind of recap that quickly, is you install WinDev first. Then as you install WebDev, it will ask you whether you want to install separately or in conjunction with WinDev and separately or in WinDev. I just choose in WinDev, period, end of story, and it installs. Same thing with mobile. Make the choice to install it with WinDev, you're done, okay? And you move on forward from there without an issue. So what we got to do is create a new configuration, and the way we do that is we come up here to our project, we right mouse click on the configurations, and we tell it, give me a new one. First thing it's going to ask you is what is the application you're going to do here. Now this is going to be a RESTful, so what I do is we're going to do a WExperts IDE REST. That's what we're going to call it because we got the WExperts IDE demo, so we're going to call this REST. And then it's going to ask you, what do you want to build with this? If you can see right here, we got a SOAP or REST web service, and we're going to pick that one because you can actually build both. But this one here is going to be a REST web service, and I want to hit next. And it says, well, what do I want from all this? Well, I don't need any windows because REST does not use Windows. But I do want all the classes. That's all I need is the classes out of this because we're going to use the same classes to do exactly the same thing that we've been doing. Which is this is what makes it so easy, and why classes, in my opinion, are one of the easiest methodologies to use in development, because whatever I've developed for the window in those classes, as far as managing the data that I've retrieved, update, insert, delete, will work in the RESTful just as easily. Okay? So I'm going to hit next, and I'm going to hit done. And what it does now is I've got WX IDE REST sitting up here, and it is creating everything with it. And the thing that it knows is says, I need global procedures. What I'm going to do here instead of global procedures is I'm going to use REST procedures. We keep them separate so that way we know what we're dealing with REST and what we're not dealing with REST, and it becomes easier to manage. And let me tell you what can happen with this. We do have the REST procedures, okay, and it's going to want the REST web service, which is basically what that is. It says, you know, you got to create entry points for stuff. And we're going to hit OK, so we're going to REST web, and we're going to let it create, but we're not going to create any entry points at this point because we don't have any entry points to go after, okay? So let's go back over to the REST procedures. We'll close this, check everything in just to keep everybody happy. And the other part about this, when people start mixing application or configurations, is there is a deal on every one of the classes, procedures, everything, okay? And what they are is you can right mouse click and you'll see configurations here. If you notice that it says on both of these the configurations needs to be there. No, I don't need it in the 32 Windows executable. It's not necessary. All I need it for is for the IDE REST, so I can uncheck that. And what that does now is when it saves, if I switch over to the other configuration of the Windows program, well, you won't be able to go in there and edit anything on it because it's saying, hey, it's not part of this configuration, you can't have it. Sometimes when you're developing, you'll end up, especially in larger programs, you'll end up all of a sudden it'll say, you don't have this in this configuration, which I've ran into that in the Psych Partner project. But overall, keeping those separate will also help you manage how things are put together when you create the exe or create the web page or create the RESTful or SOAP services. So keep that in mind. If you don't need different things like equate class or anything like this, which of course we need all of these, same thing applies here. I can right mouse click, go to the configuration, and say, oh, I need it in all of them or I don't need it in some of them. So if you have several dozen of the classes and you're not going to be utilizing ABC class in your RESTful program, well, you don't have to include it with it. It doesn't really matter. Okay? So That's as far as we go with that. Now, again, we're not going to get in all of the headers and things like that to tell it what kind of security we're going to be using, because we want to make sure that we've got everything we need simply first, and then we'll expand. Now, this is not usually the way we do it. Usually we do have all the security stuff with it, but what I want to show you is this is the minimal you need, this is the minimal you need with security, and this is the let's get real fancy and do almost anything with it. So that way you can certainly take care of everything you do. Now, the cool part about this is when we get into add, change, and delete, we're going to be using a single entry point for that, and the only thing we're going to be sending with it is what the action is. It's going to be fairly cool. You're going to like this. At least I do. I thought this was the slickest thing that WinDev or PCSoft has put together in the last few releases when they started RESTful. It turned everything around for me. There's so many things that I needed it for, and it worked beautifully. Okay, so underneath the REST procedures, we need to create some we need to create some procedures here to manage stuff. So the first one we need to do is customers. Okay, so let's get the customer. Okay, and we're going to call it customers because it's dealing with more than one customer. And we're even going to put it in a where clause in the middle of it, because that way we can pick which customers we want. Now, one of the things that everybody knows about, or if you don't, you should, is what they call injection. Injection is a methodology where what they do is they take a part of a SQL statement, they put a semicolon on the end of it, and then they write whatever SQL statement they want, like give me all your data, all this stuff like that. And so you got to be a little bit careful with that. Now, obviously, when we send in this where clause, it's going to be already encoded, so we have to decode that. But the second thing we do is we do one replace. And the replace is a pretty simple method of saying you ain't getting the data. So if they do put that semicolon at the end of the statement and add more to it, the whole statement will fail because there's not a semicolon to separate the statements in SQL. Okay. If you have more questions about that in SQL and things like that, let me know. Pete and I both have been around SQL since since the 90s, so well, actually 80s. So we certainly have a few ideas about it. Anyway, customers, we want to be able to go get whatever customers we want. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to say our where clause is string equals decode the in where clause base 64. Okay. Once we got that, we want to do where clause equals replace where clause. String to replace is the semicolon, and what we're going to do is we're just going to make it blank. Now, if you're not sure what that does, I'll give you an example. Give me a select asterisk from customer, semicolon, delete from customer. Now, if you see, because I got the semicolon in there, it will actually execute both of them. It'll give him all the data that you have and then delete it all from you. It'll be all gone, except for your backups, obviously. But that's the kind of deal that you want to stop. Now, if you take out the semicolon, well, the first thing that happens is that there's no table called customer delete, and from customer is going to fail. So the whole statement's going to fail, and he'll get nothing. That's as simple as it works. Okay. So we'll put a little bit of note here. Replace any semicolon with blank to ensure no injection. Okay. All right. We got both of those. What else do we need to do? Well, we do need to declare the classes we're going to use, just like we did in the Windows program. So I'm going to do a manager customer. Come on. Okay. And then I'm going to do a rec customer. I don't really need a rec customer. We're just going to do the manager customer is what we're going to do. Because what we want to try to do here is when they select the customer, we're going to send both the parents and the children with it at the same time. Okay, so that way, instead of making two calls, one for the customer and one for his children, we're going to be able to do it in one shot. So the next thing we got to do is go ahead and put our where clause. And if we got any order by, we should certainly do that. And we're done. Next thing we got to do is fetch it. So, customer is fetch data. Okay. Basically, that's the simplest code that you can do to actually get the data to this point. The information from here down is the same information that we did in the Windows program underneath the Windows and fetching the data. So we got to do a couple more things here before we can actually send it back to the individual that's calling it. The first thing we need to do is go get all the children for every one of the records is in there. So we have to do a for each local rec of manager customer dot AR rec, which is the array that we work with, and then we do an LREC fetch children. Now that's going to take a few moments, and then it's done. Now we know that every parent and every child is in every record. Now we only have one of each, but as you guys play with it, you'll see each other. Now make sure, for everybody that's working with this, you are in a common database, okay? So don't put any real valid information in there if you don't want it to known in Southern California versus New York versus Australia, okay? That's up to you if you want to let your name be known or other people's, but, be a little bit cautious, because everybody's going to be able to access this. Once that's done, we got to send it back somehow. This is where the JSON record, the JSON data type comes in handy. Okay, the JSON data type is a new one that's been out since 24 that has become very, very well. It's got a lot of features to it that we've been dealing with. It's worked out wonderfully. So the thing that I want to do is utilize that to send back the data. And here's the cool part about it is I can do a ret JSON. As for return JSON is JSON equal manager customer dot ARREC. And then all I have to do is result ret JSON. That's it in a nutshell. That is as simple as it gets. What that's going to do is whatever where clause that you send, or if you don't send any at all, that's fine. It's going to come in here and go into the manager customer. It's going to select the data. It's going to find all the children. It's going to put it all in the JSON and return it. So what can we do right now? We can literally run this. This is my first test. Did I do everything in here correctly? Did I blow chunks somewhere along the line by doing something wrong? But it'll definitely tell me, whether or not everything's right. And you can do this since it's a global procedure. I can use it off of the run procedure test, and we're off and running. Now, the thing it's going to ask for is, what do you want in the where clause? I don't want anything in the where clause. So all I have to do is put a couple double quotes in there, and life is good. So we're going to run the procedure test, and we'll stop it on every one of these and see what happens in the debug. Okay? It's going to come down here, and boom, there it is. Okay, so what's our where clause? Our where clause is blank. So we got nothing in the where clause. That's fine. Then we're going to do the filter screen, which is going to be blank again. We don't have anything in there. And then we're going to be ordering by name, and we're going to fetch data. Now, I'm going to stop it there so we can look at what currently is in manager data at the moment. Right now, we have one customer is all we have in there. That one customer is me, obviously. It's the same one we've been showing on the screen. We don't have any child contacts yet at all. You see, there's 0. So when we step through the next section, the next thing it's going to do is go fetch all of the children. So we got the customer, and now we should have 3 contacts in our children. So now we got the parent and child, both of them in the same class, in the same array, so that way we can send it back. Okay, so let's step a little bit further and see what this looks like. Now, for those that have no Json and have been around it enough, you'll understand what's going to happen here. For those that don't, let me show you what it does, okay? We'll evaluate this expression. Okay, now this is JSON record. You notice we got the first JSON record that's already there. We got to use the deep assign because all it's giving me is the parent records by itself. So we got to use the deep assign to go get that. Okay, in doing that, we've got to change a couple things. Number one is I'm going to go ahead and move this up here. We fetch the data, so now that gives us our parents. Here's where we got to change a few other things in here. That ret JSON child records equals dot child contacts. I'm sorry, let's name them the same. Child contacts, we'll call them child contacts here too. Okay, and that should give us all of our children in each record. Okay, one bit with this is that we need to make sure we're on the first record because we are going through each one of these records. So what I can do here is do a index right there. And then we need to add that here. Now what happens is for each time we get a new record, the index gets incremented by 1 and it'll get assigned correctly. So let's run through this again and make sure that we got all our ducks in a row. We run the procedure test. We stop there on the ret JSON. Let's go ahead and take a look at the values of that. We now have one record, Andy, and if we step through, fetch the children, and assign that, now we've got Andy and all of the child contacts going with them. Okay? That's a simple way to take care of it. Now, I've got the parents and child together. So when I come down and return, I'm going to get the same thing. That's what's going to be sent back is the parent and child records at the same time. Okay? Don't have to do much more than that, or there's, other than doing some security and things like that. That's it for fetching the customers. You really don't have anything more. Now, for updating a customer, we need to either add, update, or delete a customer. We got to create a new procedure for that. Now, here's the kicker. We're actually going to send to this the parents and the children also. Okay, so if they're on a mobile device and they're putting in the parent, they can go ahead and add the children too, and then when they hit save, boom, all of it gets sent here. And the only thing that we're going to ask for is the action type. And the action type is our equates of EADD, EChange, EDelete. That way we know we need to add, change, or delete the record. So let's go through the pieces that belong to that, and we'll create that one as well. Okay. Let's go ahead and close this and create a few things. One, we got a record, so I'm going to say JREC is JSON. We'll go ahead and do that. Now we need to, the way REST works is that it fires up, runs, and then closes off. So the declarations of the classes still has to be done. It makes no difference. You have to do it. So I'm just going to come up here and go ahead and copy a couple of things here because that's all I need to do. I'll copy that one. That's really all I need. And we're going to do the manager's customer manager and then rec customer is customer. And then I'm going to do, we've already got the child stuff in there. We just need a rec contacts is contacts. Okay. Now we got all three of those. We're kind of ready for what we need to do next. Now, we're going to be passing the JSON structure or the JSON data in what they call the buffer, a web service buffer. This is in the content field of the request. So we need to go ahead and get that and see what we got. So our text JSON is string equals web service parameter, param buffer, no encoding. Okay. Put an extra set. Okay. Now we need to check to see if that's got anything in it. If txt JSON equals that. If that's the case, we got to return a problem. Okay. So here's where we add a few things to it. Additional information is string equals payload required no JSON record sent. Okay, and then we're going to wipe that. We're going to write that back out to the web service. Write HTTP code. We're going to give it a code of 406, which no data, and then we're going to give it the additional information and return a result of blank. That's telling them you didn't send me the right information. It's toast. Can't do it. Now you can actually send back a return JSON record if you want, and I've done that as well to say what was done and go from there. And we will do that in our next phase. We'll expand this out to return a JSON record because you're going to insert a customer possibly, and you want to get back that, okay, everything worked out nicely, and here's the IDs to go with it. So we'll show you how that works, but that's a little bit more advanced. We're going to go step by step. We're going to crawl before we walk, before we run. So bottom line is we've got that now set up, and what do we need to do next is we need to go ahead and set up the JSON record. So we've got, if this is JSON, all we have to do is JREC equals text JSON, and that should do what it's supposed to do. Or you can go get the param buffer. Either one will work fine. Okay. Once you've got that, well, now I've got something to work with. Okay, so what do I have to work with? Number one is I got the parents and the children both are in there. Okay, so I can deal with the fact is of how I want to add the records. So first one I want to do is I want to take the rec customer and make that equal to jrec 1.arrec or jrec1. And I'm going to double check that with the debug before we go much further to make sure I got that right. So the question is, how do you test that to say, well, what am I going to receive in that buffer from wherever it's coming from to see if it's correct? Well, the easiest way to do that is pretty simple. I'm going to come back up to my get customer. I only got one in there, and I'm going to actually steal the JSON and treat it as a parameter into my add, change, delete JSON and see if everything's good. Here's how you do that. DB string is string equals ret JSON. I'm going to stop it there. I'm going to go ahead and run that. Run the procedure test. I'm here, and what I need to do is now take this string, get the evaluate this deal, grab all of this information here. Now, if we want to, we can look at that in JSON format, and you'll see how it's going to look. And this is the way it looks. You see, I got one name up here, and then I've got 3 records down here in the children, and that's all I got. So if I take that string that I just copied into my clipboard and bring it down here, then I can do a debug string here, open up the brackets, and I can put it right there. Granted, I can make it look pretty as far as the scope of it is, whatever I want to do. You know, it's all fine with that. I can certainly do that. The only thing that I have to do as far as my testing is concerned is that obviously we're not going to get it from the web service parameter. So that in itself is going to be DB string, and just remark that out shortly. Okay? And that kind of sets things up. So now we're down here, and you note the rec customer is still sitting there. This is as far as we want to go to kind of see where that goes and see whether we made any mistakes in this area. So we'll go ahead and close this, make sure we got nothing running as far as my tests are concerned. Come on, there we go. And we're going to run this procedure instead. So we'll do a go on this procedure. The in action type, I'm going to set it to 1. That is the same as the equate for EAD, which is add. No, actually, we're going to make it 2 for update. And run the procedure test. Now, it's going to come down, and it's stopped right there. If we look at our JSON values right now, you can see that we've got exactly the same thing as what we sent, the parent and child contacts. Now, this is an array. There could be multiple names sent, things like this. So you got to start on each one of them. I know I only have 1, so we'll make the adjustments for more than 1 here, but we're going to do this as if it's 1 at the moment. So what that means now is that our jrec1 is the first record we're dealing with. And if we step over, our rec customer should show the values of exactly that. I've got the rec customer. Now, you don't see anything in the children yet, okay, because we haven't assigned any children. We've got to do that separately. So hang on a second here, and I'll show you how that works, and we'll actually make a little bit of a loop here so that we can deal with this, and that will then go as for each rec JSON of jrec, and I'm going to go ahead and put the index there. Okay, and what this should do then is give me 1 record out of the whole thing is what it's going to do, and we'll go from there. So okay, like I said, we're going to need to test this. We really don't need the index after all, But we're gonna go ahead and run this now. Remember, we've got the DB string up here, so let's run that. Come back down. We're going to assign the first customer. Okay. Now, when you look at that, the rec customer should have the right data, but it's not going to have any children. So you can see no child contacts is what we have, but we do have myself up there. So what we need to do is set this up to be able to add the children. And the way we do that is we know that it is child contacts is the end of it, so we got to do another for each CREC for child rec of rec Json dot child contacts. And in there, we're going to do the rec contacts equals CREC. Now, that should give us each child record in the record structure. And that's what we're going to look at real quickly just to make sure how things are working and take it the next step past that. So let's go ahead and run it again. We get down here, step, 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 and continue. Now, we still don't have one in there correctly because we added the contacts, so we got to add the array. I apologize, I forgot about that piece in the pad. So all we need to do here is array add rec contacts dot rec contacts dot child record. So that's rec customer. We got to do that too. Dot child contacts dot AR rec CREC. Okay, so now let's run that rec contacts rather, not the JSON. All right. So let's run this now and see that we got all the data inside the rec contacts before we go any further, and then we can resolve to do all the actual add, change, and deletes to the functionality there. So we go, yep, everything cool. We'll go ahead and run it to the end. All right, so now let's look at rec customer now. Rec customer has now got 3 contacts, okay? And we are in good shape. So what do we need to do as far as doing something into the database with this? Well, here's where we go. The way I do it is right here. I am going to go ahead and do the manager customer dot save record, because it's an action type or whatever the action type is, and this is the way we can do this without doing a whole lot of case statements and things like that. We put in rec customer dot ID, and that is the in action type. Okay. Now, it kind of doesn't really matter whether it's an add or an insert, as far as that's concerned, or an add or an update, is because we need the ID of the manager or the rec customer record anyway, and we have that now. So if I am looking at this, the first thing I've got to do down here is, now here's where I've got to switch anything, because any of the child records can be an add, change, or delete. So I'm going to go a case rec contacts dot record action. Let's put the array rad up there. I'm sorry, switch. Old habits. Then you got case EQU add case EQU E change, case EQU E delete. Now, you can do this, but we can also do one simple thing and solve this whole problem and make it one line. And this is how we can do that. All right, rec customer. We're going to rec contacts. Dot customer ID equals rec customer dot customer ID. So whether it's an add, change, or delete, or even the same, it'll be fine. That's all right. That's rec ID. Then all I need to do at this point is rec contacts. Rec customer rather. Dot child contacts dot save record. Rec contacts dot ID and rec contacts dot record action. Now here's the cool part about this. Based on what we have, if that record action is 0, not a thing will happen. If it's an add, it'll do the add. If it's an update, it'll do the update. If it's a delete, it'll do the delete. Over and done with. Simple as that. Now, of course, the same thing applies with this, is you still got to do the process of committing those records, because it's still going to have memory mode turned on and things like this. So what we need to do at this point is type in the code to have it flush the memory mode. So we just have to do that, and we're in good shape. Okay, I made a slight mistake here because we've already added them to the array. This is the way you would need to add them to the array as you normally would be entering them. So really all we need to do is rec contacts or rec customer dot save children. That's not what it is. That'd be manager customer save children. Let me back this up just a second here. I'm got to get my stuff together for a second here. We need to go back to, and that is the method we're calling, but we do, okay, that's right. So it's rec customer, child contacts, flush memory mode is all we need. And we need to send it the rec customer .id. And that's all we need to do. I'm sorry, I got that incorrect. So we'll move this up one line just to make sure we got the ID in each one of them. And it should not even need that, to be honest with you. It should just work this way. So we need to, that needs to come out to here. So the only thing we're doing in this loop is getting them all in the array so we can then save it. Then when we do the rec customer child contacts flush memory mode, it's going to take everything that's currently in the array and save it as well. So now we got both of them saved. We got the manager customer saved, so the head saved, and then each one of the children are saved in the flush memory mode based upon the record action that's coming from each one of them. Okay? So now the question is, at this point in time, what do we send back? Now, my choice is that I literally send them back the exact same record. Okay? So I've got rec customer, and we've gone through this on the get side. Okay? So we can literally just call the get side from in here and return back the JSON structure. So I can do this as my ret JSON is JSON equals customer customers, and return them back where the ID in each one of those. The easiest way is to reserialize them as well. You can reserialize them. So let's just do that. So if we do a serialize, I am messing up. There we go. And the variable is going to be rec customer. Hold on here. Let me think about this for a sec. Serialization has to do with an array. We're going to send back an array. We've got rec customer here, which is in each rec JSON. Yeah, we're going to be doing all of the we're going to be doing the manager customer. AR rec into the buff as PSD JSON. I'm sorry, string. And then result buff. And I should give it back as a JSON, is what it should. Okay, so let's just test that real quick, make sure I got my stuff. Okay, we're going to need to add the rec customer to the array, which doesn't happen on an update, only happens on an insert. So we need to kind of if in action type equals EQU E change, then array add manager customer dot rec customer, and that should make sure that they're all in the arrays. Oh, put AR rec there, sorry. Try that again. Okay. So now the manager customer should have one in it, which it does, and we're going to put that in the buffer. Okay. The buffer has the name, and it gets sent back with the ID that's on there. The subarrays are already done, and you can send back the exact same record this way. It's probably a little bit better, and I'm going to put a pause in here so I can take a look at this, but I think that what we can do is do the same thing that we did up here so we can have the children too. Okay, so we can just take this function that we already got going on, put it right down here, and do exactly the same thing. Because serialization, we're only sending back one. Okay? So if there's more than one, it's going to put one in there, but it'll at least be one in there, and then we're going to go ahead, go through each one of their X, fetch the children, and let it do it, and then return back the ret JSON. I think that's a better way to do it, smarter way to do it. And this is a little bit of confusion on my part. I apologize for that. It's because the JSON variable gives me some extra power that I didn't used to have. So I have to think through exactly what I'm trying to do here to make sure it comes out correctly. So if we kill this and rerun the test, what we should have is both the parent and the children in there as what they need to be. and everything will be fine, and we'll be sending back the full record as it is. I really need to turn that on. Let's try this again. Run the test. Okay, step. So if we look at this now, we should have both the parent and the children. Okay, so we're sending them back. If this was an insert, the ID would be incremented because it would normally come in with a -1. Same thing with each one of the children. But whatever was changed and everything gets sent back with the same record structure. And what I'm looking for when it comes back is that, okay, do I got the same thing back, and how does it reflect anything? Okay, and you can go from there. All right. Okay, so as we stand right now, we're going to be able to get all this back. We send in the data, bring it back the data. We got 2 of the major pieces done in 2 procedures right off the bat. So now that we got that straightened out, we can go ahead and remark this out and change this back to the web service param buffer, because that's what we actually should be using. And then we'll show you what we're going to do after this. The next step that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and test this procedure. And the way we need to do that is publish it, as well as do a few things else. So what we got to do is we got to write the 2 REST functionalities. We go back to our REST web, where we're sending in the RESTful entry points. We'll go ahead and kill this, get it out of the way. And we're going to do a new one. Okay. Now, that's what I want. I'm sorry, I clicked the wrong tab. There's a tab up here, REST Web Service. We've got to hit that. Now we hit the new one. And it's going to create an entry point, and this is going to be customer. We got to fix and grab the right procedure. So we come down here to our REST procedures, and we got customers. Next, it's going to be a get. We're not changing that. And we got to come in here and hit the resources. Now, the constant is what you're calling. This is what you're actually calling from over on the web. So we're going to type in exactly the same thing. We're just going to type in customers. Okay. And then fill automatically for any variables that we've set, which is the where clause. So we got customers, where clause is all we have going on there. Okay. And hit OK. That's going to give us one entry point right now of customers / and whatever where clause we're going to send. Now we need to do the ACD part of this thing. So we'll hit another, create an entry point. We'll get its associated procedure, which is going to be ACD customer. We're going to hit next. Now this is the change. We're going to make this a post. Okay. Now it does say create method used to add an element. Well, you can have 3 separate ones if you want. That's your choice. I use one, I use it as a post, and then I send the action to it. So we've got that there. And we're going to go to the resources, and we're going to call this ACD customer and fill automatically, which is going to have my in action type in it, and said OK. And we're finished. Now both of those are done. The last step we have to do is obviously we got to publish it, and we'll do that since we've already an hour into this thing. We're a little over an hour into it now. I'm going to publish it on the next. Well, no. Let's go ahead and get it published as is, because if we don't, I'm not going to have this completely finished in what we're doing. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So we're going to come back to the project. We're going to generate. And what it'll do is create the web service. And it's going to be ready to publish. And I got to make sure I've got a publishing deal in here. So we're going to deploy it on a remote. Of course, I don't have anything here, so I've got to go import. And I'm going to get, yeah, this is the one. This is the one I want. Okay. And I can test the parameters. It's going to tell me, nope, I got a little problem here. Let's see what it is. Okay, I got to fix a couple of things. Okay, it seems like my test server needs to be upgraded to 25 on the web application server before we do this. So I'm going to shut this off at the moment, and and then the next session, the first thing I'll do is publish this, and then come back and we'll start the next process of what we're doing with it. We'll go through that last little bit and go from there. So everything is going to be fine. Like I said, you can test your REST procedures individually and see how things go. Everything should be fine from there. This is the most simple. So the next step is we're going to add in some token security and stuff like that. And like I said, the first thing we'll do is we'll publish this one, and then we'll add the token security, and then we'll publish that one too. And I'll make sure that we've got my test server bumped up to 25 like it's supposed to. All I can say is the moment is be good or be good at it. If you have any questions, please holler. I know it was kind of chaotic there right at the end, and I apologize for that. I'll try to make sure I get my ducks in a row a little bit better before I get that part started. Okay, so have a great day. Talk to y'all later.